Hi guys. Hello. I don't know why the thing says showtime. Hi, oh my gosh. Hi, Not a Butter. Hi, Nomad Cat. Hi, Grumpy. I think I scheduled it for 4:30 when I got on with Ola. I hope you guys enjoyed Ola's live. It's very sweet. Really like Ola. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I was just on with that Olga girl on TikTok for a little bit. We were just chatting. She's awesome. Hi, Jason. Hi, Taz. Sorry for skipping the live yesterday. Hi, Armin. I wasn't like feeling very well. Hi, John. Oh, John. Hi, John Rambo. Yeah. Hi, Jillian. Hi, Praxis. So yeah, sorry guys for like not only missing the live yesterday, but also kind of like not letting you know I did. I just like fell asleep and I was I was not feeling very well, and I kind of woke up. I couldn't wake up, and I just stayed in bed for a very long time. And my voice was like off. It was like a whole array of things. Hi, hi, Carolyn. Hi, Kayla. Yeah, I'm feeling better. Hi, Voice Teach. Hi, Mariana. Hi, everyone on TikTok. Sorry if I missed your name. Hi, Graham. Hi, Nazar. Yeah, I'm just like, going through some motions. I'm a little sick. I'm also in a bit of a like weird mood. I'm kind of getting, I'm getting a little anxious in terms of career stuff, and in terms of sort of like, I don't know, just all things like income and stuff like that, because, I think that the channels are growing, but also obviously it's nowhere close to being anything that's that could like support me, even with like YouTube being being monetized and stuff, because I don't like necessarily have enough audience for it to really like make a dent, and I'm kind of like getting very tight on my savings. So I'm sort of like thinking of what my next moves should be, and sort of like what I need to do to like feel comfortable while doing this. So yeah, so I'm in a bit of a weird and kind of like strange mood overall with with events lately. So there is that. So I'm sorry if I'm a little off, or I'm a little, a little out of it, or I don't know. It's just, it's New Year's is coming, so New Year's is coming, so it's kind of like a reflection time too. Um and yeah, and I'm going to, I'm going to sort of see what is the best kind of course of action from here. So yeah, so we shall see. And thank you, Jason. I really, really appreciate that. And thank you, everyone. Yeah. So there are um, there are a lot of really like interesting updates, I guess, from Ukraine and from Russia, really. Um, and since yesterday, actually yesterday, I thought that there was like not that much that was happening. Hi, Diane. I thought that it was kind of that it was kind of slow yesterday. I One of the things that I found out yesterday that was very interesting, and it's something that Grumpy sent me, is that there is a pneumonia epidemic among Russian troops that are mobilized in Siberia. Thank you, Mariana. And it's like spreading rapidly and obviously encroaching on their training camps, and they're not being given like proper medication. Of course, they're not being attended to. They live they live in these like barns, and they have no heating in those barns, and their conditions are basically like, if you imagine a farm animal living in a barn, that's kind of what like Russian mobilized troops like living conditions are. They're no better, no worse, basically. Thank you, Suzanne. And And that's why there is like a lot of room for developing different like diseases and for those diseases to spread, because they're really just living in a like in a farm animal barn. They're the conditions are horrendous. These sorry the sanitation conditions are horrendous. They don't have medication. Like, I don't know if you've seen their med kits recently, but there is nothing really that could help you with wounds. There is nothing that could help you really with anything, unless you merely cut yourself and like you need a band-aid. And some of those band-aids are like not even functional anymore because they're crusted, and they actually are from like World War II. So it's not uncanny that there would be something like that happening. Thank you. Thank you, Darlene. I really appreciate it. Um, um, so yeah, so oh my gosh, Jason says, except barn animals don't typically drink alcohol and carry typhoid and tuberculosis. Yeah, exactly. But that's the whole thing, because also barn animals are okay with these conditions, right? That's why they're barn animals. Like, you can't just stuff a bunch of humans into a barn and expect it to go okay. Like, obviously there is so much room for it to go wrong, and so much room for so many diseases to develop, and it's just not something that can easily be that could easily be solved. uh so I'm getting a question: would you go back to your previous job? Well, I mean, I wouldn't go back to the job specifically to that company and to that job for multiple reasons. Also, like, it's not like it's being offered to me, but also is a pretty like, by the end of my contract, there were a lot of things that I was noticing that I don't necessarily like stand by with the company, and I wouldn't want to work for them again. Whether I would go to my old job in terms of my like field, then yeah, I mean, that's what I do, right? So that would be like what I would do if I were to go back to work. Um, you should do some translating if you aren't already. Well, I'm not really like a proper translator. I am a UX designer. So if I were to go back to corporate, then, or to like a full-time job, then I would do it in UX design. So yeah, but with that, I will need to update my portfolio, and I will need to do things like that, because again, for the past 9 months, I was very focused on just reporting and developing this side of the events. And so we'll see. I mean, I'm gonna take a week to really like think hard on what I should be doing. I did give myself a deadline. I did give myself a deadline on sort of like previously. I gave myself a deadline on like, kind of like how I would do things if they were to happen this or that way by this time. So yeah, we will see. I mean, I just really need to like think hard on what I should be doing right now. Oh my gosh. Okay, so in reality, a row on YouTube says, "What do you think of Austria that helped Russia to keep Bulgaria and Romania out of Schengen and to try a destabilization of the EU?" Well, so Austria, like Germany, had a lot of ties to Russia, right? And Germany is very clearly pushing away from their ties to Russia, and they clearly are choosing a different path because they're seeing that they can't fully economically depend on Russia. I mean, I have a lot of like opinions on what Germany is doing at the moment and why they're doing it, but I don't think I could concisely summarize it in in a live in amid the news. But I do want to say that both Austria and Germany were incredibly dependent on Russia. So it's not uncanny that Austria would be having some very like conspicuous and I would say sort of sketchy dealings in that regard, because a lot of their economy, a lot of their trade, a lot of their a lot of their yeah, a lot of their economy and trade were very tied with Russia. Also, a lot of their politicians are very close to Russian politicians. It's like sort of the connections and the ties that are very hard to break. And I could see why, even though it's incredibly wrong, they would try and like finesse things to stay connected to Russia, because even if Russia is failing and even if they don't have as much influence in the world anymore, right, that doesn't mean that some countries are not any more dependent on them, right? I don't really like Austria's politics in terms of this invasion from the very beginning. I don't necessarily call them out because they didn't really do anything anything bad, but also nor did they do anything good, because they haven't been really active in supplying any weapons. They haven't been really active in aid. I also know that a lot of Ukrainians face incredible discrimination in Austria. Like a lot of the times when there were exhibits of Ukrainian art, or there were like charitable functions done, they were vandalized and stuff like that. So it's very clear that the mood is in Austria is not very pro-Ukrainian. I have heard that when Ukrainian refugees come to Austria, they're being sent to like super far remote areas, and they're being placed into these like middle of nowhere, kind of like no transportation sort of like towns and places and houses where like people haven't lived for a very long time. So it's not surprising to me that Austria would still be maintaining their ties with Russia and doing something strange in the background, because you can even tell from the overall mood and from the overall support or lack of thereof in Austria what their alliances and what their opinions are, right? But they're in the EU, so they have their obligations too. So I hope that that answers your question well enough. Hi, Karine. Good to see you. Thank you, Darlene. And hi, Kay. Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while either. Yeah, well, my lives, I've been doing lives. So Kay says, I haven't managed to catch a live in a while. Good to see you. Yeah, my lives have been, my main account has been banned from lives for a while. So I was on my backup account either way. So I think a lot of people have missed my lives. I've actually gotten a couple of comments on my like on my videos being like, oh my gosh, like your lives haven't like your lives haven't popped up in a while, you know, and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, because I was banned and I have my backup account, but I don't necessarily want to like send people there because, you know, it gets messy and stuff. So Taz is asking, so new schedule stream time going to be as of today or yesterday? Well, technically it was supposed to be as of yesterday, but yesterday I was sick, so I didn't do a live to begin with. But the new schedule is going to be as of today. So it's going to be 4 p.m. Is going to be 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So yeah. And on YouTube, it says Austrian Chancellor was the first to visit Moscow. Yeah, that's the whole thing. I mean, in the beginning of the invasion, a lot of people, a lot of chancellors and a lot of like politicians from the EU were kind of very much so not, you know, not anti-Ukrainian, but also not condemning Russia and sort of like trying to maintain both relationships. And they were trying to say and make it seem like they're just, you know, they just want peace and they just want to mediate and stuff like that. But obviously everybody was almost hoping that Ukraine loses in like the first 2 days and they won't have to deal with the consequences of Russia falling because because like a lot of their economy is dependent on Russia. So that's just like the thing, you know, it's like Germany right now needs to figure out so many things for themselves to be self-sufficient, because again, their economic sector was so highly dependent on Russia. And now what they need to do is they need to figure out how to be self-sufficient in that manner, right? So even though it's not great to be fully dependent on a country, especially that has like terroristic views and terroristic actions, it still was much more convenient for them if it would have been much more convenient for them if Russia stayed with the same world influence as it did, because that way they wouldn't have to completely restructure their economic and geopolitical system, right? So a lot of countries in the beginning were trying to like visit Moscow and to talk to Putin and sort of to like maintain relationships on both sides. And it's just in the beginning, if you haven't noticed, a lot of politicians in a lot of countries were just trying to ignore the fact that Russia aggressively invaded Ukraine, and they were trying to make it seem like it's a war between two countries, you know? And it's not like there is a clear terrorist aggressor. It's just two countries having a conflict and all of us mediating, because clearly that was a more there it was a more convenient way of posing things for them. And then and they wouldn't use strong language up until it was like very obvious that you can't deny anymore what's happening, and you can't just keep tiptoeing around it, and you can't just keep pretending like, it's a conflict between two countries. Also, hi Brandy, and hi Tom, and hi Kathleen, and hi Gorilla Joe. Yeah, so Gorilla Joe says Macron especially. Yeah, well, he's still, to be fair, like Macron is such a disappointment. I didn't expect much from him from the beginning. When they released that phone call where Zelensky called him and said, "Hey, like Russia invaded the whole territory of Ukraine, like there are rockets in Kyiv, there are Russian troops in Kyiv, Odessa, Kharkiv, like everywhere." And Macron was just like sitting there, and he was like, "Oh, so total invasion." And you could tell that he was genuinely just sitting there, and he was like, oh crap, like what do I do from here? Because he wasn't concerned, he wasn't in awe and in shock that like, oh my gosh, this is happening to you. It looked like this man was like, oh my god, like what do I do? This is gonna be bad. And he was just like having that reaction. He was having a reaction of a person who was like, oh well, how do I get out of this, right? Not like, oh my gosh, this is awful. And he like, I sort of was happy. I sort of was really happy to see that he started changing his narrative, although I know it's disingenuous and it's not sincere. He was starting to talk more strongly, like he started responding more strongly to Russian actions, and he started sort of saying things that were reasonable, and he was condemning Russia, and he was talking about how Russia's invasion of Ukraine is terroristic, and that it's barbaric and stuff like that, and that Ukraine shouldn't make any concessions. And then recently he said that bit about giving security guarantees to Russia, which I have such a problem with that. Not even in the sheer fact of security guarantees for Russia as a Ukrainian. It's like funny, right? But in the fact that he said, like Vladimir Putin always pointed out, we need to make sure to give them security guarantees from a NATO invasion, by that basically saying that there was a possibility of a NATO invasion, and like kind of perpetrating Russian rhetoric. Meanwhile, there was never that possibility, and that there wasn't that possibility sheerly based on even Russian reaction and Russian preparation, because how recently they said that on their propaganda TV, they said that they would need to resurrect their air defense protection systems because they weren't prepared for an attack, and they can't resurrect it all over the country on such a short notice. But what do you mean by a short notice? It's been 9 months of active warfare. And also, didn't you say that you invaded Ukraine to prevent an attack from NATO that was inevitable, and you were prepared and waiting for it? So that just makes no sense, right? So, but Macron, like saying that security guarantees need to be in place in order to make sure that Putin feels comfortable with NATO not invading, is only throwing like NATO under the bus and making it seem like NATO could. Meanwhile, that was never a plan, right? So he himself is basically perpetuating this lying Russian rhetoric. So yeah, so that's what I really wanted to point out. And I don't know, he's such a disappointment at so many different levels. Not that I had a lot of faith in him, nor did I have a lot of it's like, it's not that he could disappoint me because I was like expecting something out of him, right? Or expecting something better out of him. Like, not really. because I wasn't expecting much from him to begin with, and his behavior from the very beginning was very questionable. But it was disappointing in a way where I expected most of the politicians who had a hard time coping with the fact that they would need to start doing things for their own countries and figuring out self-sufficiency. He still isn't, as in, like, I was okay, and I was giving I was sort of giving credit where credit isn't due to all the politicians that at the end of the day were, finally figured out that, okay, well, we can't perpetuate this Russian rhetoric anymore, and just started doing the right thing. Not that that deserves credit, but in this particular case, it does. And he is just still on his wave of denial and copium and Russian sort of dependency. So it's really strange. My dad thinks, like, I'm gonna share this. I normally don't share, like, my family's opinions, because, like, I think their opinions are more emotional in the sense of things, rather than, like, research based, right? Like, my dad calls me and asks me, like, what do I think about Belarus? What do I think about this? What do I think about, like, certain things? Because he knows that I research this and I actually have a more informed opinion than he does. And and he sort of, like, he said that he thinks that Putin has a folder, like a very, very thick folder on Macron, and that it's his last kind of, like, connection straw to the EU that he still grips onto, hoping that that would change something. And honestly, I mean, there is no evidence to that, right? And nobody would find evidence to that. It would be impossible. But at the same time, it does, like, to me, it looks like a possibility, even though, again, normally I don't just, blatantly take my parents', like, blanket statements based on emotions and go, like, yeah, that's a good idea. Like, there needs to be research behind it, but it does seem entirely plausible. So yeah. Until So yeah, so there is that. Okay. I think we should dive into the news today. With that said, for everybody who is new or might not have heard this speech a million times, hi, my name is Yulia. I was born and raised in Lviv, Ukraine, and I've been living in New York in the United States for the past 12 years. I moved here when I was 16 years old, and my entire immediate family, so my mom, my dad, my grandma, my grandmas, my grandpa, my aunt, all live in Ukraine. I'm the only one here in the United States. I speak to them daily, and on this channel, every day we basically do the news about Ukraine coming out from and pertaining to Ukraine for the past 24 hours. We dissect them, digest them, give them context in terms of politics, geopolitics, history, culture, current events, and otherwise. We basically have discussions. You guys are welcome to ask questions, and this stream is happening on 4 different platforms at the same time. One of them being YouTube, one of them being TikTok, one of them being Twitch, and one of them being for now Twitter. And as I say every time, I just don't know how long I can handle Elon Musk and his freedom of speech. But for now, we're there too. If you prefer any one of the platforms that I mentioned above to the one you're currently on, my handle is the same across the board. And you can just find me by searching up YEWLEEA. And if you don't follow me on YouTube, I highly suggest that you do, because on YouTube and like other social medias, there are all of my lives are saved and you can rewatch them. You can take bits and pieces of them. There are also videos that come out every Wednesday and Sunday that are called Ukraine News Briefly. I think I'm going to actually rename it to either the News Brief or the Brief, or rather the Briefly. The News Briefly or the Briefly or News Briefly. And they are these video segments that tell you the news for the past 24 hours and everything that happened in the week up until that moment in under 20 minutes, which is super convenient, and you can listen to it on the go. They're also chaptered, so you can basically, if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, you can just listen to the parts that interest you. Usually we have the news are divided on 3 main topics, and everything that happens in between, and sort of like supporting information and everything that could be pertaining and that could be pertaining to those briefs. With that said, I'm going to start the news. I am going to remind you that although you don't have to and you're not expected to, different with multiple feeds. One second. So although you're obviously not expected to, and although you are obviously, one second, sorry, let me just plug in my iPad, because as you know, I'm also very bad at charging all of my electronics. So what I wanted to say is basically, if you want to ask questions before the news stream, the time is now, because during the news stream, it's harder for me to catch questions because the chat is flowing much faster. With that said, I still do try to catch the questions and I do try to respond to them, but I do really appreciate if you send super chats or super stickers or stuff like that, because not only do they go a very long way and help me financially support myself, but also that way, if you send super chats during the news section itself, then it's easier for me to see them because they pop up on the screen in these like super bright colors, and there is no way that I will not notice them. So while you don't have to, they are highly appreciated. And also, that is not to say that I will not be answering questions that are not super chats. I will be. It's just that if you do send those are guaranteed to not get lost in the rest of the comments. Okay, so there is something coming from Rob, and Rob says kind of different with multiple feeds. And only one seen here. I'm not sure what you're referring to. So if you could be a little more specific, then I could provide you with some commentary on that. I'm sorry if I'm not understanding you correctly. This was curious of your thoughts on the U.S. approving Patriot. Okay, so all of this is going to be, Kirby. I'm going to cover that in the news cycle. Also, hi Juju, good to see you. Hi. Hi, Beef Ninja. Hi, Julia, and the Big Brief. Thank you so much, Brandy. That's incredibly sweet of you. I really, really appreciate that. Happy holidays to you as well. Yeah, it's holiday season, isn't it? It's such a stressful time for everyone. Like, it's supposed to be such a like happy time, but I feel like no one's ever really happy during the holidays. It's like so stressful for so many different reasons. Yeah, holidays are both fun and also incredibly like a lot. I really like the holidays. I think it's like fun because I really enjoy giving gifts to people. So for me, it's a very fun time in terms of sort of like expressing my love for people with gifts. Also, I found out recently that my love language is gift giving, which is funny because that is so true. I really like figuring out gifts for people, and I really like not just giving people random gifts, but kind of figuring out what's going to work for them. I always get people stuff that's like cool, but also functional. So it's just like my whole thing. And that aspect of the holidays I really like, but then also like shopping for gifts and like finding something for someone is kind of stressful. I love decorating the Christmas tree. I love wrapping the presents. That's fun. But then, spending all the money on presents is not fun, especially in this kind of bit of life where the world is just chaos. Then also preparations for the holidays. I like to throw parties, and I like when the parties like not parties but like dinner parties, and having like close friends over. And when it's happening is fun, but preparation for that is super stressful too, figuring out what to do, when to do it, who's available, who's going to see their family in like a different state, who's going to be other places. Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate that. So there is just like a lot going on there, and it's so it's just there is there is a lot going on with these things. Thank you so much, Joe. I really, really appreciate that. Okay, so well, happy holidays. I hope I did not ruin your holiday spirit with my rant. All of these things are fun. It's just just a lot going on. Okay, so here are the photos. We're gonna start this brief. We're gonna start this news stream with photos that are titled Donbass, and they are basically these. Thank you so much. Thank you, Crazy Cat. Oh my gosh, Crazy Cat just sent a super chat saying, "Are you excited about the reports Ukraine is receiving battle robots, Terminators for the next offensive?" Oh my gosh, yes. I hope that they come with bionuclear lizards and radioactive pigeons. I hope that these come in a batch of 3, because how can you receive Terminator robots for the next offensive without the bionuclear lizards and radioactive pigeons? I would be disappointed if we only got the Terminator robots. You know, we're so used to the luxury of all of the genetically modified animals that that I can't imagine life without it. But yeah, oh my gosh, your birthday present is coming from Ukraine. That's amazing. But yeah, okay. So this is a series of photographs, and it's titled Donbass, and this just shows you the reality of what's happening on the eastern front of Ukraine. And I really want you to see it. Let me just oh my gosh, no. Let me just do this really quick. I want to make it a little brighter so you can see it better. Okay, what is happening? Why am I so bad at technology today? Okay, sorry guys. There we go. So this is a photograph of a Ukrainian soldier on the Eastern Front. This also is a photograph from Donbass. These are basically, the series of photographs is meant to illustrate to you exactly what's happening in the Eastern Ukraine right now. Also, this is kind of not on the topic, but something that I wanted to bring up. So I posted a couple of videos about proper language, appropriate articles for the name of Ukraine, right? Kind of like certain things that people consistently keep mispronouncing and also keep oh my gosh. Okay, so keep mispronouncing and keep kind of like insisting on mispronouncing and insisting on saying wrong. And I found it so funny because there are so many Russian people with handles that do not sound Russian unless you go to their profile and you find a video in Russian, or I don't know, like their name is Russian or something like that. Started writing in which cases it's appropriate to say the Ukraine. In no cases, literally in no cases. And started arguing me on this and condescendingly saying like, well, this is coming from someone who's an ESL teacher. And they were trying to say that, and it's like the same people that I've seen before. Thank you, Karine. That's very, very, very sweet of you. Thank you. But so basically, what's there are a lot of all of these like comments, and this one comment came from this like Russian woman who says her name is Kat, but I know it's Katya because I've gone through her profile and she is Russian. And she was saying that, oh, first of all, I need to teach you how to say articles in that case. Thank you, Truthful, because you don't seem to understand it. But there is a case in which saying the Ukraine is appropriate. And it's basically like, oh, which Den are you talking about? The Den? Oh my gosh, you're from Ukraine? The Ukraine? Thank you, Diane. Thank you so much. And they were basically trying to like portray it that way. And it's funny because yes, sure, there are cases in which saying the Ukraine is appropriate, but you can also say like, oh, that Ukraine, you can substitute it for something else. And obviously, I'm not talking about the cases where it's grammatically correct to refer to Ukraine as the Ukraine. But as a name of the country, it's not the Ukraine, unlike the United States, the United Arab Emirates, the United Kingdom, the Ivory Coast, the Congo, or as I recently found out, the Netherlands. Actually, people from the Netherlands prefer it to be Netherlands because it's Nederland, not like it's singular in their language, not plural. But anyways, so in Dutch, it's singular. So yeah, and I fully respect that. If Dutch people prefer Nederland instead of the Netherlands, oh my gosh, thank you, Darlene. Sorry, there is like such a cute hedgehog. Thank you guys, I really, really appreciate it. So yeah, so it's just kind of like, very obviously, thank you, witch bitch, very obviously aimed towards sort of discrediting Ukraine and discrediting our ways, and to argue and to just stir the pot, because clearly I'm not talking about sentence structure, right? I'm and using articles in the sentence structure. I'm literally talking about the name of the country, and they know it. But that's the whole thing, is like, when people tell me like, oh, Russian citizens, they're innocent, they didn't do anything wrong. It's like, Russian citizens are the people who come to my comments and genuinely, not even the bots, but they try to pretend like they're American, German, French, whoever, right? And they argue me and they try to say demeaning and derogatory comments and stuff like that just because they want to. And I deal with that every day. So my attitude towards your everyday Russian is well earned by your everyday Russian, right? It's not just because I one day woke up and decided, like, oh, I'm just going to dislike Russians. Like, no, I just deal with them every day. And I unfortunately get so much negativity and so much approval for the general attitude of the country that I can't treat them any other way, nor can I see them any other way, right? And the worst part is, again, they never want to appear to be Russian. They want to trick you into thinking they're not. Thank you, Evolving. Thank you so much. Okay, so teams of German concern KMV or KMW will repair heavy military equipment for Ukraine, according to Die Zeit. The Restoration Center was established under an intergovernmental agreement between Germany and Slovakia, 25 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky had a phone conversation with US President Joe Biden. He called for a global peace summit. Zelensky also thanked for the defense and financial assistance that the United States provides to Ukraine. He told Biden that Russian troops had destroyed about 50% of Ukraine's energy structure, and thanked for the assistance in this area. Therefore, Ukraine needs additional systems to strengthen its air defense. Belarus is unlikely to invade Ukraine, says Institute for the Study of War. Analysts believe that Belarus's entry into the war in the worst case will force Ukraine to temporarily transfer some soldiers and equipment from the current front line. Also, it will weaken Lukashenko's regime because it will show that Russia's attempt to ensure full control over Belarus was successful. So here is actually what I want to say about that. So I think that it's incredibly unlikely that Lukashenko is actually going to insert his troops into the war with Russia. And here are the reasons why. So Lukashenko is not an idiot. He's a dictator. He is a tyrant, but he's not an idiot. And he fully understands that inserting himself and Belarusian troops into the warfare would mean that when Russia loses, and he understands that Russia is going to lose, right? The European Union is going to flush them down the toilet, and they're going to be done with, and they're going to be sanctioned out of the wazoo. And unlike Russia, Belarus doesn't have nearly even like that bit of an economy to be able to persevere through it. So it's gonna be the end of them, right? Another thing is, so Lukashenko is in a pickle. He's in a very serious, very, very difficult pickle, where he knows that if he sends the military to Ukraine, then the military is not in Belarus to protect him against the people who are going to want to take him down and who have been wanting to take him down and sitting there and waiting for the right moment, right? If he doesn't send the military to Ukraine, then Putin is going to be incredibly, incredibly upset with him, and Putin is going to be trying to take him down, right? So he is caught between two fires. And what he is trying to do, in my humble opinion, based on analysis of facts, is that he is trying to give Putin little and little and little and little without actually fulfilling Putin's wish of Belarusian army joining the invasion, right? So he is instead of sending the troops to where Putin tells him to send the troops, he's like, oh yeah, let's build a pontoon bridge and make it look like we might be invading. Oh yeah, let's throw some troops to like Brest region to make it look like we're preparing. Let's mobilize. Let's do this, let's do that, because he is basically giving Putin enough for Putin to stop pressuring him, but not enough to actually send his army into the invasion. He's also, making enough moves, but not enough for Belarusian people to be like, oh, he's trying to send us onto the front line as cannon fodder. And again, At this point, it's much more convenient for Lukashenko that Putin loses, right? It's much more convenient for him that Russia falls apart, because at that point he still has, like, not that I'm standing for it, not that I support it, I clearly don't, but if Putin loses, if Russia falls apart, then Lukashenko actually still has like a chance of figuring out his own, his like own dictatorial stance and not losing his power. But if Russia stays, then he's forever indebted and indebted to and dependent on Russia, right? And he sees that Russia's losing. Like, he's not delusional. And that's why he's just trying to stretch out time, I think, to figure out what his next moves are going to be. Because at the end of the day, for him, Russia is not what matters. For him, what matters is staying in power and keeping his dictator status. So at the end of the day, his main concern and main priority is staying in power and not being overthrown. So he's going to do whatever it is that will keep him in power. And honestly, throwing troops into Ukraine to support a dictator who's currently slowly being dethroned, aka Putin, who's losing, who has lost all of its standing in the world, who's losing all of its economical and geopolitical ties and becoming a pariah, and kind of like crossing out any possibility of ever making a deal with the EU, or having some sort of like, oh yeah, we will give you this info on Russia and we will help you in this way if you don't sanction us, kind of deal, is definitely not what is going to keep him in power. So he's definitely not trying to strengthen his connection to Putin. He's definitely not trying to throw the Belarusian army over the border. What qualifications? What qualifications do you have to speak confidently about this topic? Honest question. Okay, so I'm actually going to answer this question. My education is in psychology and UX design, so I basically am a professional researcher. that's what my job is. I design iOS technology based on a tremendous amount of user research. I am not a geopolitical expert, nor did I ever try to portray myself as being one. I do have extensive background in history, and I have always been incredibly interested in history. So what gives me confidence in speaking on this topic, which I'm not trying to portray as facts unless they are facts taken from sources that I cite every single time, I just give you my analysis based on a tremendous amount of research that I have done. So that's what makes me feel confident in saying what I've been saying. And I have been doing this for 9 months. And so far, I've been pretty on point with everything that I've analyzed, basically because, again, this is not rocket science. It's research, understanding Eastern European geopolitics and European geopolitics, understanding the political tensions and dynamics in Eastern Europe and like in the United States, because they're also involved in this, right? And making analysis based on such. So that's why I feel confident, because first of all, I'm Ukrainian. I was born and raised in Ukraine, and I was born and raised in Ukraine, so I fully understand sort of how like the post-Soviet/Soviet politics works, and that gives me more insight into what to research, how to research, and how to analyze it. But again, I do want to disclose it. I'm not a geopolitical expert, nor am I a geopolitical analyst, but I am someone who vastly enjoys doing a tremendous amount of research, so you don't have to. There is that. But take my opinions as opinions. I never portray them as anything other than opinions. And if I tell you opinions, I clearly state that they are my opinions. And if I tell you facts, I clearly state that they're facts, because I cite sources. So I hope that was a good explanation. And yeah, that's all. So it's not that I have expertise in the field, it's that I read the news, I explain them with the geopolitical, political, and historical background, because that's something that you do know as a as a responsible Ukrainian citizen. You would know your history and politics, right? So I give you that context that you might be lacking because, well, you're not Ukrainian. And yeah, so there's that. But I'm in by no means a geopolitical expert or analyst. I just analyze things based on research that I do. I am a professional researcher though, but but just in a little bit of a different field. But this happens to be my country, and this happens to hit very, very, very close to home. Okay. Poland opposes discussion of security guarantees for Russia by the European Union, Deputy Foreign Minister of Poland before the meeting of foreign ministers. Russian occupiers fired from multiple rocket launchers Uragan at Hirnik in Donetsk region, said the head of the regional military administration of Donetsk region, Pavlo Kirilenko. As a result of the shelling, 8 people were wounded as a preliminary finding. And here is what it looked like. So there it goes. This is a fragment of the shell. This is some shells that basically some victims and the consequences of the attack, the preliminary consequences of the attack. Okay, losses of the Russian occupiers in Ukraine amount to 94,760 personnel as of today. 2 people were unalived and 10 wounded in the shelling of Hirnik Donetsk region, the Prosecutor General's office reported. So earlier I was just saying that preliminarily it was 8 people wounded, and now it says 2 people unalived and 10 people wounded. As of now, confirmed. Slovakia is ready to transfer MiG-29 to Ukraine. Preparations may begin soon, Slovak Foreign Ministry reported. France has handed over 6 155 millimeter sorry, I'm like a little sick today, so it's hard for me to speak. France has handed over 6 155 millimeter towed howitzers TRF-1 to Ukraine, according to French Defense Ministry. This is good because we are, I think it was a couple of months ago that we were saying that we would need maybe like 50 more of these in order to make significant progress in the invasion. So handing over 6 is really big because that's a little more than 10%, right, of what we need. For the first time in 10 years, Putin will not hold a big press conference at the end of the year, according to Peskov. Peskov is the Putin's press secretary. That's I wonder why. I wonder why a disgraced dictator who had been named as the biggest loser of the year by Politico would not be holding his press conference at the end of the year. Might be because no one is willing to listen to him, nor is anyone interested in it. Might be because most of the politicians have been ignoring him and not meeting with him and declining meetings with him and sort of just giving him the biggest cold shoulder in history in the past couple of months. And might be because why hold a press conference at the end of the year about about something that no one's going to be like listening to you about. So no point. Also, what are you going to say? Hey, I tanked the economy of this country and it's going down the drain quicker than anybody can fix, and I am now stuck in this invasion that I have to win to prove to the world that I'm a master strategist, but I'm clearly not winning and I don't know what to do. So yeah, there is really no reason to hold that press conference. Okay. In the morning of December 12th, the Russian military shelled Kherson and suburban settlements with artillery and multiple rocket launchers. The shelling of a residential area of the city killed a woman and injured 4 more people of varying severity. A fresh overview of the current situation on the front line in Ukraine. And here is, I'm going to read you a brief summary, but I'm not going to read you a summary based on a summary of each region. Okay. Ukrainian and Russian armies are advancing symmetrically in Donbas. The Ukrainian army is trying to put pressure on the Russian defense between the cities of Svatova and Kreminna in Luhansk region. And the occupiers are constantly attacking Bakhmut. Both Ukraine and Russia have now pulled the largest number of forces to these areas. Whoever succeeds first will pose a threat to the enemy from the flank and force them to either regroup or retreat. The most important event of the last 10 days is explosions at Russian airfields where strategic aviation aircraft are based. It is from these airfields that Russians fire cruise missiles at Ukraine. On December 5th, explosions occurred at the airfield Degileva in Ryazan region and Engels in Saratov region. The next day, a large-scale fire broke out at a fuel depot at an airfield in Kursk region, and the Slava oil plant caught fire in Bryansk region. The reason for all explosions and fires are called strikes of unknown drones. Ukraine officially does not take responsibility for this yet. Western media, citing sources, wrote that the armed forces of Ukraine attacked Russian air bases with modified Soviet Tu-141 Strij. In Soviet times, it was a tactical reconnaissance drone that could conduct reconnaissance to a depth of 400 kilometers and fly for 1,000 kilometers at a speed of more than 1,000 kilometers an hour. However, Strij is large, and this makes it a fairly easy target for air defense. In Ukraine, these drones have been used as simulators for air defense forces exercises. According to Western media sources, the Ukrainian military has upgraded the Tu-141 and turned it into a kamikaze drone, an analog of a cruise missile. Strij were developed and produced at the Kharkiv aviation plant. That is, Ukraine has its own capacities to produce or modernize them. If Ukraine has such a long-range weapon, it can seriously affect the course of hostilities because it increases the radius of destruction. Russians will have to pull back air defense forces from the front to cover the strategic targets in the rear and strengthen the security of airfields near Ukraine. The strike on the airfields on December 5th did not prevent a massive missile attack by Russian troops on the same day. Out of more than 70 missiles launched, Ukrainian air defense forces shot down 60. This attack damaged the energy sector much less than the previous ones, because we were able to intercept so many missiles. And it was estimated that that strike cost Russia $400 to $500 million. And, well, most of it was wasted because out of 70 missiles, we took down over 60. Ukrainian intelligence says Russia produces about 40 new missiles every month. Since the beginning of the invasion, Russia has managed to produce 240 X-101 cruise missiles and about 120 caliber C-launched cruise missiles too. The Council of the European Union has increased the size of the European Peace Fund by $2 billion in 2023. This fund is allocated for the purchase of weapons for Ukraine. EU gas storage facilities are more than 90% full. They have exceeded their target and exceeded the average occupancy rate for the last 5 years, said Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the European Commission. Okay, large-scale fire broke out in the industrial zone of Nizhny Kamsk-Neftekhim in Russian Tatarstan, Russian media reports. So I would say it's like it's like an oil and it's an oil chemical plant from the name of it. And the fire area was about 10,000 square meters. There have been a lot of fires in Russia recently, and obviously none of them are accidental with the amount of fires that are happening. It was very funny because like someone in the comments to my latest post about all of these crazy fires in Russia said, "Oh, are you sure that this is more fires than Russia normally has? Because it's a big country and fires happen. And, you know, maybe it's just the season for fires." I'm sorry. Let me just get something straight. Do you see all that snow on the ground? That is not a season for fires. It's not like California wildfires where, you know, the temperatures are reaching a maximum over over like the past century or something, and things are just getting on fire. No, these are facilities. These are normally storage facilities. These are normally production facilities. These are normally facilities that could be used as ammo bases. These are facilities that produce things that could be used for like vehicles for warfare. So double-ended goods, right? These are usually very, very targeted areas to just be random fires that occurred from nowhere. And it was like a very, very funny statement that someone was trying to question my logic by saying it might be just a fire season in Russia and we haven't been paying attention in the previous years. Because again, it is snowing hardcore. It's middle of December in Russia. It is not a season for fires in any area of Russia. But anyways, Tatarstan is a republic that actually was colonized by Russia. Tatarstan has its own people, and they're Tatar people, and and Tatarstan is kind of like in the middle of like northern middle of Russia, I would say, and its capital is Kazan. Just FYI. Spain will send more than 25 more power generators to Ukraine in the coming days, Spanish Defense Minister for La Sexta. Spain also continues to participate in the EU mission to train Ukrainian servicemen, and in January, 200 servicemen will arrive. The drama theater in Mariupol, where about 600 civilians were unalived in a Russian airstrike, they're trying to rebuild it, and they have been rebuilding it since like May, pretty much. And nothing significant has happened. But what they have done, is they've been basically. So there were a lot of bodies. There were a lot of bodies of people in the drama theater because, as you might recall, the estimates were like 600 people that were unalived, and and they, the bodies were there for such a long time, and they were there at a season that was really hot, that they started like smelling and, rigor mortem and all of this stuff. And hi, Loyalty, good to see you. And they didn't know what to do, and no company was willing to come there and basically do something about those bodies because the smell was impossible. Nobody wanted to touch bodies that were there for such a long time. So what they did is they literally just poured concrete over them, and they're building a theater on top of bodies of people that they killed in one of the largest missile strikes on Mariupol. Yeah. So here is a quote from Zelensky from his interview with David Letterman. If you're not aware, there is a new David Letterman episode that came out on Netflix, and it's his show that's called My Next Guest Needs No Introduction, and his next guest is Volodymyr Zelensky. It's on Netflix now. I watched half of it yesterday, but then I was really tired, so I went to sleep. So I'm planning on watching the rest of it today. But here's a quote from Zelensky from that show, and then I'm going to show you. A little trailer to it. So he says, "I will be president until the victory, and then I don't know. I want to go to the sea and have a beer." Zelensky in a Netflix special. "I will definitely be president until our victory, and then I don't even think about it. I don't think yet. I'm not ready. I just want to go to the sea when we have already won, and I really want to drink beer." You remember when I was telling you earlier that I think that what he's gonna want to do is he's just gonna want to go on a vacation, but what Ukrainian people are going to want him to do is to stay president because he's key to Euro integration and stuff like that. But it's funny because that's exactly what you guys were asking me. You were asking me if you think he's gonna run. And I said that, he has no other choice because I think that people are going to want him to run. But but at the same time, I think that I think that he is gonna want to just go off somewhere to, somewhere he could have a beer and have a rest. So I'm going to show you the trailer to The Sun did a little summary of what was said, and the reason why I'm taking The Sun is because they probably will take more sort of more pieces of the Netflix interview than just the bits from the promo. So this is what I want to show you, and it's probably going to have
Have you guys heard of this wine or also something called like?
Ми тут захищаємо нашу незалежність, нашу державу.
So this is all that the Sun has. It's a very good interview. I watched half of it yesterday. What is happening? Oh my gosh, please stop. It's a very good interview. I watched half of it yesterday. I will tell you. Okay, Taz is saying, "Oh, come on, they didn't put the joke clip." Thank you, Kay. The joke clip in. So the joke was basically, Zelensky said that Russians were saying that, they're having a war with NATO, and that there is a joke going around Ukraine that originated in Odessa. So Odessa has a very huge Jewish population. And so usually the Jewish population of Odessa is known to be like the jokesters, right? And so he was saying that, two Odessan Jews are meeting up and they're saying, "Did you hear? Russia is at war with NATO." And the other, there are two people basically, and the other person is like, "Oh, really? What's happening?" And the original person says like, "Oh, well, I mean, Russian troops are suffering. There's so much equipment that has been destroyed, so many soldiers that are dying every day, like there's so much equipment that has been lost, so many lives, like, so just like sanctions, all of this stuff." And the other person is like, "And what about NATO?" And he responds, "Well, NATO hasn't even arrived yet." and so that's like the joke about this whole thank you so much, Loyalty. And it's this whole joke about yeah, like, Russians are so at war with NATO that they're suffering all of these defeats, and well, NATO is nowhere to be seen because it's not a war with NATO, right? It's a war in Ukraine. And so that was the joke that Zelensky said on the Letterman show. He obviously says it better than I do, so please don't take it as a spoiler. And I'm sure that if you watch the original, you will still find it funnier, and you will still like it more than what I just told you. Okay, so Politico says U.S. Air Force wants to transfer Reaper drones to Ukraine. At the same time, the Pentagon is discussing this issue. American officials fear the loss of secret technologies, as per usual. But see, I think at this point, the world is just coming to terms that they're going to have to send these higher technological advancements to Ukraine, because Russia is going to lose the war. It's just that it, when and how depends on all of these weapons, and not sending these weapons just results in loss of more and more Ukrainian lives. EU agrees on a package of sanctions against Iran over arms supplies to Russia. According to Joseph Borrell, the sanctions list includes 8 individuals and 1 organization. The bridge between Melitopol and Konstantinivka was hit. Now our artillery is closely hitting various locations in Zaporizhia region. Let me remind you, Melitopol is in Zaporizhia region. So here you go. This is the bridge. And then this is where it is on the map. It's marked with a red cross. Hi, audio producer. This is the moment that made oil. Volodymyr Zelensky suggested that Russia start withdrawing its troops from the territory of Ukraine on Christmas Day. Thus, according to the president, Russia could confirm its statements about the rejection of aggression and readiness for dialogue. British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace said he would be open to supplying Ukraine with longer-range weapon systems if Russia continues to shell civilian areas. Engels Airfield, their fight and air defense, translation of the inscriptions. So basically, Engels Airfield is the airfield that was struck by presumably Ukrainian drones. And instead of, and they said that they have reinforced their air security around the airfield. And so it does look like, this is their air security. They managed to write an inscription, and it says "Death to the Enzis." That's what I'm going to call it. So, TikTok doesn't dislike my language. But yeah, that seems like this is their best air defense capability, to write "Death to Enzis" on the ground of the airfield. Minister for International Development Cooperation Johan Forsell, says Sweden will allocate additional 55 million euros for the restoration of Ukraine. Since February 24th, the police and the SES have seized almost 500,000 explosive items. In general, this number is even higher in Ukraine because other state services and the army are also carrying out demining, Zelensky noted. Joint statement by the G7 leaders after the speech of President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky says G7 support Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression and will do so for as long as necessary. Russia will eventually have to pay to rebuild critical infrastructure damaged or destroyed by its brutal war. Putin and all those involved in the crimes will be brought to justice. Sanctions will continue and intensify. Divestment from Russian oil and oil products is a priority, and sanction circumvention will be punished. So there was something that looks like an explosion in Bryansk region of Russia in the city of Klintsy. And that is what it looks like. Right there in the back, you could see a tiny little explosion. Well, it's not so tiny, it's just very far away. But that's all information we have, so I don't want to speculate. Okay, so Bavovna, says someone on Twitch. Yeah, cotton. The reason why explosions are called cotton is because in Russia, chlapok is like a clap, pretty much, and chlopak is cotton, and in Ukrainian, cotton is bavovna, and so chlapok and chlopak are the same word, just pronounced differently. And so every time Russia would say that there is an explosion somewhere, instead of saying an explosion, they just said, "Oh, there was a clap." And so we decided to call it bavovna. Here's a very interesting video coming out of Syria, and this is how Syrian residents greet the Russian liberators. There you go. They're throwing stones at them, just FYI. So yeah, even Syrians are so happy to see Russian liberators. Oh. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. I'm going to show it to you. So basically, this is from a concert of Artem Pivovarov, and his basically electricity went out during his concert, and so people and him included, or him and people started singing this song that's the lyrics of Shevchenko from 1840. Shevchenko is one of the most renowned Ukrainian poets. He is he's considered to be one of the fathers of Ukrainian language, and the lyrics are called "Thoughts My Thoughts" or "Duma Moye Duma," and it's very beautiful that once the power went out at the concert, people started singing that particular song. So I'm going to show it to you. I think it's beautiful. I am going to say, basically, there is a Ukrainian person on Twitch, and they made a comment, and they're saying that Pivovarov was visiting Russia which I haven't heard about, but I do want to say that there are a lot of Ukrainian artists right now. So this is a beautiful moment, and it's amazing that, like, even if there is no electricity, we manage to get by and we figure it out and we show our spirit, right? But with that said, also, there are a lot of Ukrainian artists that we now say have changed their shoes. And change their shoes means basically that they have been in a very close relationship with Russia, making lots of money in Russia, mostly performing in Moscow, not in Ukraine, right? Mostly performing in St. Petersburg, mostly like making their career in Russia. And then after the invasion, when they have been called out on it, they have like immediately changed their shoes and became incredibly pro-Ukrainian and didn't make any statements on their, on their dealings with Russia, on their career in Russia, and have just been like, yep, I've been Ukrainian all along. Yep, never did anything wrong. And Pivovarov might be one of those. There has been actually a Ukrainian performer. Her last name is Pivovarova, and I think her name is Dasha Pivovarova. I don't necessarily listen to a lot of Ukrainian singers, especially those that had careers in Russia, because I find that once they move to Russia and once they start performing there, their content and their artistry changes to like the Russian standard, which is normally like really dumb pop songs. And I don't mean it in like a derogatory way. I just mean that, like, in Ukraine, the things that we like are much deeper lyrics and much more like freedom of speech related songs that have much just have more meaning. And in Russia, like, the songs that are popular are like, oh my God, I lost my husband because he cheated on me with a random chick, like things like that. So I just, I very much so don't listen to that. I also have never in my life really listened to any Russian songs. It's just not something that was ever interesting to me. I don't know. I find Russian music really gross, and always have found Russian music really gross before invasion or after. It's just never been my thing. Like, I've mostly listened to like old school Ukrainian bands and like, and English songs, like as in songs in English. But yeah, so can you sing that again? No. Nope. I'm not going to do that. But anyways, so there is this singer, Dasha Dorofeeva, and she actually was called out on having worked in Russia and having done a lot of damage and having like supported their economy and culture and stuff like that. And she came out and she was like, you know what, you're right at calling me out. And like, I wish I understood that in the beginning of my career. She was like, and right before February 24th, I was one of those people who was like, oh, it doesn't matter what language you speak on. It doesn't matter where you work. Like, why are you guys so pressed and stuff like that? And she's like, and on February 24th, I realized that, wow, I am the problem and I am contributing to the problem. And I wish that I had realized that sooner. And I'm incredibly, now that, like, I see everything that's happening and I see that what Russia has been doing and how I have been helping the occupier and how I have been helping the, helping perpetuate this invasion and helping perpetuate this anti-Ukrainian rhetoric and like, helping just basically aiding in this. And she was like, I fully understand my responsibility. And while there is nothing I can do about it in past tense, I can now. And that's what I hope I will be doing. And I'm trying to like do my best. And I wish that I've realized that sooner, but unfortunately I didn't. And I think that that's amazing because that's public accountability, and she didn't just pretend like she's never done anything wrong and went ahead and started doing like concerts that benefit Ukrainian charities. She like actually spoke out against it, and she spoke out about it, and she, and she took responsibility. And I think that that's amazing. And while I am not very familiar with her songs at all, nor am I very familiar with her, that's what I saw happening in like the current events. And I was really proud of that, Okay, so, all right. Oh my God. Oh, so there's this blogger channel, 1420. It's a Russian interviews on the street channel. And a lot of you probably watch him. A lot of you probably know him. So he somehow made it into this Ukrainian news source with his YouTube video that's called asking random Russians in Moscow what they think about the second wave of mobilization that is expected to happen in January. I would show you this video if you want to see it watch it on your own accord. I'm not going to give him publicity because I personally had an incredibly negative experience with this guy, and I just think that it's really funny that people consistently keep pushing this rhetoric of good Russians onto me. Meanwhile, this man literally found me on Instagram, reached out to me unprompted and said, "Hi, I saw your live. It came up on my suggested. And I thought that my audience is really going to enjoy your content. So I wanted to offer you to pay me $400 so I could advertise your channel on my channel and give you a boost." That's a good Russian who really wants to boost Ukrainian content. Okay. He reached out to me asking me to pay him $400. For small bloggers, the package of advertisement he has is $400 per ad, per a shout out, okay, to boost content. But that's my experience with him. And I also thought that it was really funny that he said that he watched my live, because I highly doubt he did, because that particular live after which he reached out to me was a live in which I was saying that I don't make any money off of YouTube, that I'm not monetized because I wasn't, and that I quit my job to do this, and that I don't support any Russian content in English, and that I don't suggest anybody watches any Russian content in English. And I doubt that if he actually watched that live, he'd be reaching out to me. No, I probably came up in his recommended. He probably saw, oh, Ukrainian creator, small, probably will want a shout out, lives in America, so can shell out $400 so I can make some money, you know, and I'm going to reach out to them. And to me, it was so incredibly disgusting that I have that channel blocked. I will never show you any content from that channel. I will never advertise that channel. And no matter how much insight into what your regular Russian says does this channel provide for you, I am not going to be participating in any of the, you know, in any of their publicity. Also, I did see that they're trying to auction, or he's trying to auction his YouTube Silver, whatever, like, award. And he said that he would give all of the money to a Ukrainian charity. I don't, first of all, the charity that is linked there on his eBay where he's doing that is a charity that's located in Miami, Florida, not in Ukraine. 1, 2. He is in Ohio or Indiana or something like that. So he's not even in Moscow anymore. He like escaped. Okay, as a good Russian, instead of like doing anything and using his influence, he like escaped. And yeah, you know, I have nothing else to say. I think that my, my last straw of tolerance to good Russian bloggers ended when this man literally reached out to me, offering me to pay him. Reached out to a Ukrainian creator to pay him, a Russian creator, $400 to get advertised on his channel because he thinks his audience is really going to enjoy my content. Yeah. Disgusting. And also, if you think that I'm making this up, I have screenshots of this on my Twitter because somebody had mentioned this person is like this amazing Russian blogger. And I was like, okay, no. And also, I will say that his channel is in English. My channel is in English. He immediately texted me in Russian. He reached out to me in Russian, even though both our channels are in English. And that's the aspect of Russian colonization and of their superiority complex that we talk about all the time. Nowhere on my channel is it indicated that I speak Russian. Nowhere. In fact, in every single one of my lives, I say that I refuse to speak Russian. Anytime somebody writes to me in Russian, I say, hey, if you write to me in Russian, I don't know if you're Russian or Ukrainian. Also, I've made a conscious choice to never speak Russian. Also, I'm from Lviv, where most people do not speak Russian. I'm actually an anomaly and an exception because my grandparents moved to Ukraine from Russia. And I was one of the 2 people out of my entire class that spoke Russian. Everybody else did not. And I'm from a very Ukrainian area of Ukraine. Also, it is disgusting to message a Ukrainian in Russian right away and expect them to know it. We're not Russian, we're Ukrainian. It's kind of like if you just randomly DM'd an English person in German and you were like, well, just speak to me in German. Like, no, stop that. Hungary managed to get the European Union to unfreeze part of the funds intended for it. In exchange, the country lifted its veto on some important issues, in particular on 18 billion of macro-financial assistance to Ukraine. You remember when I told you that this was blackmail from Hungary to get the money? Footage from a military unit near Klince in Bryansk region, that's where we saw the explosion, where damaged equipment is being repaired. So apparently the explosion occurred on a base where Russian damaged equipment is being repaired. So crater from the explosion. Interesting. Very interesting. The plant Zvezda is on fire in St. Petersburg. It produces diesel engines for the Navy. The fire broke out in a building on the territory of the Zvezda machine building plant on an area of 200 square meters. Russia is consistently just engulfed in fires recently, and they're all at very strategic locations. So I'm wondering, I don't expect Russian opposition to do much. But I feel like, there was a joke, which is the likelihood of that is so small, but I'm going to say that anyway because I thought it was funny. So all of those Ukrainians that were forcefully relocated to Russia, maybe they are the ones setting things on fire. The United States has shipped the first batch of its equipment for the needs of Ukraine's energy infrastructure, according to Reuters. The first batch contains equipment worth approximately $13 million. Ukrainian intelligence says Russia uses Ukrainian X-55 cruise missiles transferred under the Budapest Memorandum in massive shelling. During the shelling, Russia uses Ukrainian missiles as a bait to force Ukraine to use air defense against them. First, they launch an X-55 missile. We respond to it. It's like a decoy. According to our calculations, they have missiles for 3 to 5 more waves of attacks if there are 80 to 90 missiles in one wave. So so as you might remember, in 1994, Ukraine signed the Budapest Memorandum, where we gave up our nuclear weapons and transferred a lot of our military arsenal to Russia in exchange for security guarantees of non-invasion and territorial integrity, and those were guaranteed by Russia, by the United States, by the United Kingdom, and a couple of other countries. And so these are the missiles that we have given to Russia in 1995 as part of the Budapest Memorandum of our security guarantees of non-invasion and maintaining our territorial integrity. So this is what Russia is using against us. Germany will continue to supply weapons to Ukraine, but no new types of weapons are planned. German government representative of Euractiv. Hi, Scooter. Good to see you. The European Commission will finance up to 30 million LED lamps for Ukraine to help the country with energy saving. The press service of the European Commission said, when 50 million of these bulbs are installed together with our partners, it will save 1 gigawatt, approximately the annual capacity of a nuclear power plant. Switzerland will provide Ukraine with a new aid package worth almost 100 million, President of Switzerland, Ignacio Cassis. This package will help solve the problems of this winter, and next year, Switzerland will invest into the restoration of energy facilities, schools, and hospitals. On April 13th, Ukrainian defenders were able to find and reach the flagship of the Russian Navy, Moscow, with a Neptune missile due to bad weather and overconfidence of Russian sailors. On that day, the Moscow was standing in the Black Sea about 120 kilometers from the coast. But conventional radar cannot show targets at such distance. The occupiers knew this, so they felt quite safe. This is about the sinking of Moscow warship. At about 4 o'clock, the operator of the Neptune complex saw a large target on the radar due to the weather. There were defense clouds over the sea. The radar signal was reflected from them to the water surface, and from the water back to the clouds, and in such a corridor, the radar suddenly reached the Moskva. As soon as the Russian cruiser came within the range of Ukrainian missiles, 2 Neptunes were immediately launched. So that's how the downing of Moskva happened. The Ministry of Defense of Belarus, on behalf of Alexander Lukashenko, announced a sudden inspection of the combat readiness of the army. This is what I was saying. It's just he's gonna give Putin crumbs, you know? Peskov said that the Kremlin does not accept Zelensky's proposal to start the withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukraine on Christmas Day. Putin's spokesman believes that the Ukrainian side needs to accept the realities that have developed over all this time. That is, Russia's occupation of Ukrainian territories. Oh, sorry, that was a comment from just, the publication. This is the comment from Peskov. Without taking into account these new realities, any progress is impossible, he said. I wonder what those new realities are. I feel like, Russia needs to start accepting the new realities of the fact that they're screwed. President Volodymyr Zelensky asks the European Union to supply electricity to Ukraine until the end of the heating season. To do this, it is necessary to increase capacity. Such support will cost approximately $800 million. 3 MiG-31Ks arrived in Belarus. Because of them, air alert throughout the country. Okay. Ukrspex Systems has updated its Shark reconnaissance drone. The company reported that the drone received a more powerful battery that doubles the flight time, as well as extends wings. Their span was increased to 3.4 meters. The updated Shark will soon be delivered to the armed forces of Ukraine, and this is a drone that Ukrainians have created. Norway plans to approve a multi-year program of support for Ukraine. Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, so if you're Norwegian, please feel free to correct me. All EU countries supported the provision of 18 billion euros of assistance to Ukraine. During this year, the European Union, its member states, and its financial institutions have provided more than 19 billion euros. We're looking at the next year, and I have very good news because last night we managed to agree on 18 billion euros for Ukraine. The Verkhovna Rada approved sanctions against Russian athletes who supported aggression against Ukraine. Among these who fell under the restrictions are Anatoly Timoshchuk, the record holder in the number of matches for the Ukrainian national football team, ex-boxer and State Duma deputy Nikolai Valuev, and Olympic champion Alina Kabaeva. Crazy. So Anatoly Timoshchuk is a Ukrainian soccer player who works in Russia. Italian Senate approves arms supplies to Ukraine in 2023, says La Repubblica. The Verkhovna Rada has approved the draft law on national minorities. The new law should describe who will be considered national minorities in Ukraine and consolidate their rights and obligations. This is one of the conditions of the start of EU accession negotiations. That's awesome. That's about to give way more rights to minorities solidified. Kramatorsk again suffered a powerful enemy strike. A shell hit the building of the Institute of Technology and Management. The consequences are being clarified, but here is the first video. Hi, Nicole. Hi, hello, good to see you. Poland rules out restoration of pre-war relations with Russia, Polish government spokesman Piotr Müller. There should be no return to the relations with Russia that were before the war. It is impossible, he said. France is ready to provide 100 million euros to rebuild Ukraine's infrastructure. Bridges and tracks, French President Emmanuel Macron said at a bilateral business conference on resilience and reconstruction of Ukraine in Paris. There is no need to wait for the end of the war. As soon as the territory is deoccupied, we need to think about how to breathe life and economy into it. Really? Are you going to think about it at the same time as you're going to think about the security assurances for Russia? Are you going to be thinking about it at your bedtime? Is that what's going to be happening? Please let me know. US completes preparations to send Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine, according to CNN. And that's a big one because Patriot air defense systems are far superior than anything we have right now. And those are going to be incredibly big for protection against Russian airstrikes. If someone moves towards us, I do not envy them, says NSDC Secretary Danilov on the invasion from Belarus. Also, NSDC Secretary Alexei Danilov believes that we should not expect an attack from Belarus because Belarusians have no desire to fight with Ukraine. Ukraine may receive 30 more T-72 tanks modernized in the Czech Republic in 2023. Reuters says despite sanctions, Western countries continue to supply microchips to Russia. From April to November, the United States and a number of European countries supplied Russia with chips worth $777 million. For this purpose, shell companies were created in Turkey and Hong Kong. So companies are quite literally avoiding sanctions. And I'm very happy that the new package of sanctions basically said that it's criminal to try to evade the sanctions. The United States has found no signs of weapons in Ukraine falling into the wrong hands, Pentagon spokesman Patrick Ryder. Foreign Minister Kuleba suggested that Russian troops may launch a major offensive against Ukraine in early 2023. According to the minister, Russia still hopes that they will be able to move deeper into Ukraine. This is evidenced by mobilization, conscription, transfer of equipment. However, Kuleba emphasizes, I'm not saying that this will definitely happen. I strongly believe that they will not succeed. And this is all I have for you for today. And someone was asking if I believe that the offensive of Melitopol from the Ukrainian side is going to start once the ground freezes. And yes, I do believe so, because that's exactly what we've been talking about for a while. And that's exactly what we need in order to be able to successfully conduct that offensive. So yeah, I do think so. I think it was Tom, or maybe it was Mike. Okay. Alrighty, guys. If you don't mind, I have a grocery run, and I really need to. I really need to start. I really need to get going with my day. So if you have questions, please ask. I will try to swiftly respond to them. If not, then I will see you a little later today just for a chat, and I will see you tomorrow. Or rather, tomorrow we have the the news briefly. And Taz, oh my gosh, I still forgot to do this because I was sick yesterday. I swear I will look into it today. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Alrighty, guys. Thank you for watching the news. Also, oh my gosh, I need to go turn on the heat because it's so cold in here, and then I'm surprised why I'm sick. Okay. Your thoughts about trade for Griner. I haven't really expressed my thoughts on that yet, but I will do so next live. If you ask me in the beginning, I will give you the whole breakdown. Alrighty, guys. Bye. Did you hear about Russian neo-Nazis wanting to attack Baltics? Yes, I did. It's in my news briefly from Wednesday, I believe, either Sunday or Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday last week. So you can check it out. It's news briefly. It's Ukraine can strike Moscow. All right. Bye, guys.